Okay, guys. Sure that your cameras are on. All right. So what we're going to be doing this week is we're going to go over the listening section. So let's get started. In the listening, you will have 5 or 7 tasks. Okay, I'm going to tell you why in a bit. And it's over 30 points as any of the other sections. So yes, I don't know. I think some people find it easier than the other ones for some reason. I'm going to have to agree with that. I think at least the conversations, I would say that's one of the easiest, if not the easiest part of the test. So it's all about, practice note taking, maybe listening to different sets of material. It doesn't necessarily have to be something from the TOEFL. It could be anything if you listen to TED Talks, different conversation samples. If you have, the appropriate vocabulary, that helps as well. But it's mostly about note taking, I'd say. And because you need to practice that strategy, taking notes while you're understanding and listening to whatever is going on in the material that you have. So we're gonna see how it works. About the structure. In the listening part, you will have 5 tasks or 7 tasks. And the reason why I'm asking, but anyhow, in the reading section, I said you can have 3 or 4 passages, right? So that's going to affect the number of tasks you have here in the listening part. Obviously, if you have the shorter reading section, so if your reading is shorter, you just have 3 passages, then the listening will be longer for you. You will have 7. But if you're in the reading, you get 4 passages, you get the extra one, then the listening will be the shorter one. Okay? And anyhow, if you get 7 tasks, 2 of them are going to be unscored. So they're not going to even care about 2 of the tests that you do, but you cannot know which ones they're going to be, so you just need to answer everything. And yes, and don't worry, because no matter how many of them you got, you will have, the necessary amount of time. So if you get more tasks, you have more time. So 7 tasks means 57 minutes. And if you get 5 tasks, you will get 41 minutes. Okay, guys, so to sum it up, 5 tasks, 41 minutes, or 7 tasks, 57 minutes. And that all depends on how many of them you had in the reading. So the shorter the reading, the longer the listening, sorry. Okay, guys, so any questions so far? Is everything okay? All right, now these tasks are going to be divided into both conversations and lectures. So you will be listening to a material, conversations or lectures, and then answering some questions about that. And today we'll be focusing especially on the conversations. We'll leave the lectures for next class. Okay. Now the conversations are always going to be kind of the same. So I cannot tell you what they're going to be about, but I can tell you how it's going to be looking like. So it will be a conversation between a student and a campus worker. All right, so when I say campus worker, I really mean anyone who works on campus. From a professor, could be a librarian, maybe could be an academic advisor, it could be maybe the accommodations officer, anybody who works on campus, and the student. And what they will be talking about is, initially, they will have a problem. So there's going to be a problem. The student will have a problem, and the student is going to see this campus worker in order to ask for some advice. So the student has a problem, college-related problem, and they're trying to see if the campus worker can help them. Okay, so you will have a problem and some probable suggestions, because the campus worker is supposed to help the student and give them advice. Okay, so that's how it's going to be working. A student has a problem and goes to see a campus worker to ask for help. and the campus worker helps the student by giving them some suggestions on what to do. Okay, so is that okay so far? Do you guys have any questions? Okay. Now, of course, sometimes they're going to change the topic in the middle of the conversation. So this is how the conversation starts. And it's, in many cases, most of it. But there are some occasions in which they start talking about something different. So that may also happen in the conversations. Now, some things I gotta say, some things you should know about how the listening works. Sorry. Well, the first thing is that you won't have access to the questions until you're done listening to the conversation or lecture. Okay, so you cannot actually listen and answer at the same time. You cannot do that, okay? You will only have access to the questions once you're done listening to the lecture or the conversation, whatever it is you're in. All right? And they're gonna be delivered to you one at a time. So one by one. You won't have access to all of them at the same time. So it's not like the reading time. Nope, in this case, you get them one by one. And there are some things that you're not allowed to do. So you cannot skip questions. That you cannot, like you physically can't leave a question in blank. You are forced to choose an option, even if you're guessing, in order to move on to the next one. And I think that's something good, you know, because it kind of forces you to do that. And obviously, if you don't know the answer to a question, it's way better to take a guess than to leave it in blank. Because if you're taking a guess, then maybe you're right. You know, you're not going to lose anything by trying. So it's way better to always have that in mind. Now, the bad side of this is that you cannot go back and you cannot jump around. So it's not like in the reading where you actually could go back to the previous question. Nope, in this case, once you choose one and you move past that, then there's no way that you can go back and change your option, right? You're gonna have to leave it like that. So you get them one by one. You cannot skip questions. You cannot go back, jump around. And you can only access to the questions after you're done listening to the material that you have. Okay, guys? And one more thing I want to say about the time, as for time goes, even though time isn't really a problem here, I wouldn't say it is, at least not like in the reading part. It is important that you guys are aware of, you know, your options. So if you're spending more than 1 minute in a question, then you need to know that that's gonna be, you know, that's gonna, you know, prevent you from answering the later ones. So you really want to think about that in case you're spending too long in just one question. The best thing you can do is just take a guess and move on. Because either you remember, either you know what the answer is, you remember it, you have it in your notes, or you don't. There's no other way around, you know, it's not like in the reading where you can try to figure it out, go back to the reading, read again, and try to find the answer, look for it, come up with something. No, you get the question, you just have your notes and your memory, so you can now listen to it again. So either you have it or you don't. So if in case you don't, just don't waste time in one question. Okay, guys? So any questions so far about what you're allowed or not allowed to do in the listening or anything? Okay, guys. So, all right, now some tips I can give you. So first thing, don't worry too much about understanding everything. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes people tend to do here. So it's okay if you miss some words, especially in the lecture part. Here in the conversations, I would say try to have some vocabulary, which is for sure gonna help. So some vocabulary related to college life is helpful, to academic life in general, to assignments, papers, grades, maybe accommodation inside campus, all those things that actually helps. But in case you miss some words, in case you miss some parts of the conversation or the lecture, and that's okay. It's not that big of a deal. So when you're there and you don't understand something, don't try to force yourself to get it, okay? Because that's just gonna make you miss the information that's gonna come later. Try not to write everything down. That's another mistake. Some people believe that they can actually do like a transcript of the whole thing so that they have everything there and they can answer every single question. But that's not possible, right? It's really not, because even though if they're not speaking so fast, it's quite impossible to create a transcript at the same time and understand. So just write the most important information. I would say, to be brutally honest with you guys, in the conversations, you don't even have to worry that much about the notes. My advice is when you're listening to the conversation, just try to write down the things that you wouldn't remember normally. So if you have anything like dates, if you have anything like numbers, names, I don't know, concepts, or anything that you wouldn't remember. For example, maybe, okay, Professor Gerard will be back at 10:30 p.m. So maybe you can kind of write that down, 10:30 Gerard, because those are things that you wouldn't remember. Or there are 1,500 students in this class. So maybe those things, or if you have like a list of things, okay, so in order to apply to this program, you need to fill this form, you need to talk to this professor, you need to do this. So maybe those kind of things you can take notes on. But in general, in order to understand the main idea, you don't have to worry that much because it's quite easy to follow. One more thing, try not to get distracted, because there's no way they're gonna let you listen to it more than once. So no matter what happens, if something's wrong with your computer, if you got distracted by another person that's taking the test with you, it's not gonna matter to them. So just make sure that you focus on what you're listening to. You put your head on the game and make sure that you are there. You're not somewhere else. So that's it. I mean, those are some things I could say about your notes. Just make sure that you write keywords. You can use symbols to help you out. Next class, we're going to be looking at how to take notes specifically for the lectures, okay? Because it's more important than today. Just make sure that you are using the right amount of space, that your notes are organized, you don't take notes on everything, that you follow the same order as the information is delivered to you. And yeah, not that big of a deal for the conversations. In the lecture, we'll see that it's actually quite important to know how to take notes. Okay, guys? So any questions right now? Okay, so now about the types of questions, we're not going to be looking at them one by one the way we did in the reading. I'm just going to give you a general overview of what they are. So we're going to do this with examples. I think that's the best way since we don't have that much time. So you have 6 types of questions. You have the main idea type of question, which is usually the first one. That's asking about what the problem is or what the original reason why the student went to see the campus worker is. It's usually the first one. So you don't even have to look at your notes for that. I'm sure you will remember. Then you have sometimes these function and purpose questions that will ask you to listen again to a part of the text or a part of the conversation. And it's more about interpreting something. So what does this person mean by that? Or why does the professor say this? Okay, so you will recognize this type of question when you have to listen again. And the good thing is that you don't have to remember again. It's just that you focus on understanding what that portion of the conversation means. Organization is mostly for lectures, so we'll leave that there, but that's about how the professor organizes certain information. You have the attitude type of question in the conversations, which is about feelings, about how the student feels about something or what the student's attitude is. Again, it's quite simple. You don't need notes. You just need to pay attention. And that's why it's important, not only to take notes, but actually pay attention to what they're saying, because some questions are about, how they're saying it, not what they're saying. So also pay attention to the tone, maybe to how you think they feel, and put yourself in their shoes, so try to see how would you feel if you were the student or the professor. Inference, not that common usually for the lectures. Now, the thing about this is that the most common type of question is the detailed questions. And they are the ones that ask you for there's very specific details, like what time does this professor is back, or I don't know, or how many students are there in this class, or what did the professor say about this? Okay, so those details, that's why it's important to take notes only on the details, because it's the only one that requires you to actually take notes. Okay, so in general, again, this sums, I think this comes down to just make sure that you listen to the conversation, not only taking notes. And when you're taking notes, just take notes on the details. Okay, I think that about sums it up. Okay, guys, so any questions now? We'll be looking at this with some examples later. Okay, so there's one more thing I gotta say before we go to the example, which is, and this not only goes for the listening part, but in general, for this test, try to be logical. Okay, if you remember in the reading, we saw that sometimes it's important to think things through. So the same goes here, and the same goes in every single part of the test. So in case you don't know the answer to a question, in case you're not so sure, you're hesitating, you're torn between two options, so try to, reason it out. Try to think of what it could be and try to make it in a logical way. So for example, this is a main idea type of question. It's asking about the original problem. So I know that right now we have no idea of what the conversation here is, but let's try to see what we could think. So can anybody please read this question?
Yes. Why does the student go to see the professor?
Okay.
Also the answers?
Yes, please.
Okay. To talk about her paper on farming practices, to ask if she can study abroad in Guatemala, to discuss her research on agricultural practices and environmental conditions, to see if she can become a Spanish major.
Okay, thank you, Milenka. So what would you guys say? As I was saying, I know we haven't listened to anything, but are there any options that maybe don't feel right, they don't fit among the options, or you could consider eliminating, and why? Like, what's more likely to be the answer? Okay, so Orlando says C. Okay, so yes, I think C is a reasonable one. It could be. So why C and not the other ones, Orlando? Okay, Milenka also says C.
Because, can you hear me? Sorry.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I think because you go to see the professor to discuss something you have been working on, and not maybe talking about if you can become a major or studying abroad, I guess. So by this card,
Okay, perfect. That's great, Orlando. That's correct. So yes, and that's exactly what I was gonna say. So when you have this main idea type of question, try to think of what the campus worker's job is. So why would you go to see the professor? As Orlando says, you're probably not gonna go see your professor to talk about things like whether you can study abroad, whether you can change your major. It's probably gonna be on something related to the class. So things like grades, maybe, or a research, a paper, an exam, anything like that. So yes, think of what the campus worker's job or role is. If it's a librarian, then you're probably gonna go see the librarian because you need help with some research or finding a book, finding a material, I don't know, something like that. Not, to discuss grades. So try to think that way. So great, Orlando. Great, guys. So any questions about this example in here? All right. So what happens when you have these attitude type of questions? So what's the professor's attitude towards this, or how's the student feeling about that? So can anyone please read this question here?
I can, teacher.
Okay.
What attitude does the professor have towards the student's work? He's impressed by the novel's originality. He's concerned that the students may find the novel difficult to read. He's bored by the novel's description of ordinary events. He is eager to write a book about a less familiar subject.
Thank you, Lord. So what do you guys think of this one?
I think the letter A.
Okay, letter A could be. So why A and why not the other ones?
Because I think that a professor could may talk about what is special about a novel.
Okay. All right, that's great. So yes, it's probably gonna talk about what's special about the student's work or about the novel. Midenka also says A. Okay, so anybody else has anything to add here? Okay. Okay, somebody says A as well. All right, Orlando. So yes. Now there's one more thing. You know, when you, in general, again, not just for this question, but in general, the TOEFL test is like, it's always gonna try to show you like the right or the bright side of things. So whenever you have two options and one seems a bit negative and the other one's more positive, then always try to go for the positive one. Because students and professors here and anybody who works on campus is supposed to be nice and helpful. So if you have anything that makes them seem like rude, or maybe something like he's mad at the student or he's yelling at the student or he feels disappointed, well, maybe that, I don't know. But if it's something negative, it's probably, I'm not saying it won't be, but it's less likely to be. Okay, so yes, it's more likely that the professor's impressed by the novel's originality. He could also be concerned that students may find the novel difficult to read, but I don't think he's bored or eager to write a book about a less familiar subject, because that will be like too selfish. You know, if your student's coming to you to show you his work, probably not going to be thinking about writing a book yourself. So in general, try to always, it's probably going to be something positive over something not so positive, right? So that's a tip for this one. And there's one more thing. Even though they're supposed to be nice, they're also supposed to be fair, you know? So if you have anything like the professor will change the student's grade, or the professor will favor this student in some way that seems a bit shady, it's probably not going to be that one again. So it's supposed to be fair for everyone. So usually you don't have anything about extra time, extra credit, or something that doesn't benefit everyone in the same way. So if you have these two options, the professor will give the student an extension versus the professor emphasizes that the student must hand in their paper on time, B is way more likely than A, because that's what a professor, ideally would do. Or if you have something like she doesn't want to help the student, probably not, you know? It's more likely that she wants to be fair to everybody else, or that she can help the student in a different way so that everybody is benefited equally. instead of she doesn't know what to do, or she doesn't want to help the student, or she doesn't care about the student. So it's probably not going to be something like that. So in general, what I'm trying to say here is sometimes you can, get away with it, even if you don't exactly know what the answer is. Don't just choose one like, okay, A, B, C, D, A, B, C, D, D. Try to think it through, if you don't know what it is. So is that okay, you guys? Any questions before we move on to the example?
Just one question. In the previous question, it was the option B, the option A, sorry.
In this one here?
No, in the other one.
This one here?
Yes?
It could have been A or B.
Okay.
We don't know, but it's probably not going to be C or D.
Okay.
We don't know right now. It's always better if you actually know what the answer is. This is just in case if you don't know, then the ones that could be.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, guys. Any other question? All right then. So let's do this. Okay. So now we're going to be listening to a conversation, to a sample of a conversation. And remember that you need to take some notes. So please get a piece of paper, a pen. Okay, so that's kind of how it will be. You have the instructions first. In this section, you will hear short conversations. In the exam, you will just hear it once, you cannot play it again. Sometimes you also have like a summary. Sometimes you do. So I don't know if we can look at another example. Well, not that one. I will do some pictures. So for example, look at this one. Listen to Amir asking for advice at the library. So sometimes you have like a short summary of what's going on. So Amir is going to see the librarian to ask for advice about this. So make sure that you read that too, in case you have it. Okay, so now we're gonna listen to the conversation. Try to take notes only on the most detailed information that you get, and try to pay attention to try to understand what the main topic of the conversation is, whether that changes throughout the listening or whether it stays the same, what the problem is, the solutions. So try to see.
Everything all right?
Yeah. Okay, I think I'm not sharing my. All right. So let's.
Everything all right, Carla?
Yes, I just wanted to talk to you about the assignment that's due on Monday.
I can't give you attention if that's what you want.
No, it's not that. I wanted to ask you about the word limit. At the moment, I'm way over it. But I found so many useful sources that I don't really want to cut anything out.
Well, it's meant as a guide rather than a hard and fast rule. It's not as if I'll stop marking as soon as I reach the word limit. But I don't really want you to go way over it either. 2,800 is the absolute maximum, I'd say.
Wow, that's still going to be hard.
Well, you can use this opportunity to try to make your writing more succinct. It's good exercise in writing technique. Think about which of the writer's points you really want to draw attention to and discard any information that isn't really relevant to your premise.
Okay, I'll try that.
Remember, you can always refer to 2 or more sources in the same paragraph, in the same sentence even.
What do you mean?
If one of your citations seems to complement what the other says, you can refer to them at the same time. You can do that when they contradict each other, too. It's a perfectly acceptable way of constructing a paragraph.
I get you. Well, I'd better go. I've got a lot to do before Monday.
Hang on, Carla. While you're here, I wanted to mention something to you.
What's that?
Have you heard about the Harvey Graduate Business Program?
No.
It's a special scheme funded by the Harvey Group, you know, the financial place in town.
Yeah, I know it.
Well, they have a special program that they run especially for graduates. It's very exclusive. They only take on 3 people a year. Each of the major colleges in the state is invited to put forward a maximum of 5 students a year for consideration. And we only pick out the very best students, the ones with really high grades. I wondered if you'd be interested in trying out for it. After all, you've been doing well in all your modules.
Wow, it sounds like an honor to be considered. I guess all those late nights working on assignments were worth it. What does the program give you?
Well, you get work and training at the Harvard Group for a year, and then they will fund your master's course a year down the line. I'm right that you're interested in doing a master's course, aren't I?
Yes, I was considering doing something management-based.
Well, I think they discussed with you what master's course would be best for you and them, depending on the department you're working on. So you may be obliged to do the course that they want you to do, but it's bound to be useful. Then they employ you for another year. And after that, you can choose to stay with the company or move on somewhere else.
Harvey's a prestigious company. I couldn't see myself moving on fast if I managed to get a foot in the door.
Indeed. Well, is it something that might appeal to you?
Maybe. I was hoping to go abroad for a while, though. What do I have to do to apply? Do I need a resume? I was working on mine just the other night.
Well, there's a rather lengthy application form to fill out, so I don't think a resume is needed. Then, if you get through the first stage, you'll have to do a presentation. If they like you, they'll invite you back for an interview. It's pretty tough, as you can imagine, but I would suggest it to you if I didn't think you could do it. I mean, you've done some great presentation in class, and you've had the experience of setting up your own business, too.
No. I haven't done that.
Haven't you? I thought you did something selling perfumes.
That's Miranda.
Oh, well, sorry about that. My mistake. But you still had experience working in a business, haven't you?
Yeah, I've worked in my dad's office in the vacations.
Well, that's very valuable, and I'm sure you learned a lot from that. Well, if you're interested in the program, come to my office later on, and I'll give you the details. After 4 is best for me.
Thanks.
Everything all right,
Okay,
Carla?
guys.
Yeah.
So that was it. What do you think about it? How was it? How did you find it?
I think it was clear.
Right? So yeah, I'm glad. Yeah, I think it's quite clear. It's easy to follow, to understand. They don't speak that fast. They articulate well. Usually they find someone who has like neutral accent. And the vocabulary is also quite easy to follow. Maybe it's a bit long, 4 minutes, but still. Okay, guys, so let's try and answer these questions that we have in here. Now, the first one, the main idea type of question, Carla wants to talk to the professor because she doesn't think she can finish her assignment in time. She has been unable to find good sources for her assignment. She's worried that her assignment is too long, or she doesn't know how many sources she should refer to. So what would you guys say the first one is?
See?
C, the third one? Okay, Orlando also says C. Anybody else?
See too.
Sí.
C. Okay, that's great. So you guys agree. Perfect, that's correct. So C, everyone agrees on C. So she's worried that her assignment is too long. That's great because that's what she's there for, initially. Later, they're gonna talk about some other things. They're gonna discuss how many sources she should refer to, or maybe the heartbeat program or whatever. But what you need to focus on is that initial thing, why she's there. And that usually is something that you find at the first 30 seconds, because she goes to see the professor with a reason, right? And she's like, I wanted to ask you about this, or I don't know if you could help me with this. So pay attention to that initial problem. And in this case, it's the word limit, right? She's worried that her assignment is too long. Okay, so well done. Now moving on, the next one, question 2. I don't know if anybody could please read this. Will anybody do that?
Me, teacher.
Okay, thanks.
Read the 6 sentences below. Which does the professor advise Carla to do? 1. Make her writing more concise. 2. Use just one piece of information from each source. 3. Focus on comparing and contrasting information. 4. Discard information from less reliable sources. 5. Remove citations which contradict information from other sources. 6. Ensure that there is a reference to a source in every sentence.
Okay, so we need to find 2 things that the professor advised Carla to do. 1 and 3, 2 and 4, 5 and 6, 3 and 4, or 1 and 6. So Ana Belén says 1 and 3. What do you guys think? Take a look at your notes. Miriam also says 1 and 3. Okay, and Orlando too. Okay, Cami y Lucia. Roger, what do you think? Is it 1 and 3?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, so then I think we all agree with 1 and 3. Let's choose that one. Okay, that's perfect, you guys. 1 and 3, make her writing more concise and focus on comparing and contrasting info. So that's correct. I do remember they say something like, or the professor says you should make your writing or consider making it more succinct, which isn't the same, but it's a synonym of concise. So that's why it's important, you know, to pay attention and try to understand what he means when he says that. Also focus on comparing and contrasting. I think they talk about that for quite a while. They're like, if 2 sources complement each other or they contrast or they're opposite to each other, then you should maybe try to use them in the same paragraph and stuff. So it is definitely 1 and 3. Now here's something that I would try to have in my notes. The advice that the professor gives, which is half of the response, half of the audio, I guess. So, and it's like a list of things, right? You should do this, you should do that, you shouldn't do this. So you can take notes on that. Okay. Now the third one. This is a detailed question. This one goes, the Harvard Graduate Business Program provides young people with a funded master's course of their choice, overseas work experience, work in various departments in the company, a total of 2 years employment at the Harvard Group. So what does this program offer? What would you all say? This is a detailed question, by the way. So what does this program offer? Orlando says A, a funded master's course of their choice. All right. Anna says C, work in various departments in the company.
I also think that is option A, but I think they mentioned something about staying in a company for but I don't remember if it was 2 years or 1 year. I didn't pay attention to that.
Okay. All right, so you're between A and the last one, D.
Yes.
Okay. So Cami says A. Orlando says, I don't know. Roger says A again. Miriam A. Patricia, what do you think? What would you say? You're gonna be the one that break this tie. So you there, Patricia? Okay, Patricia says A. Let's go for A. Let's see. Okay, so nope, it is an A. Let's see if it's C. I'm guessing it's D. So a total of 2 years employment at the Harvey Group. So it was 2 years. Now I gotta admit, this is a tricky one. It's kind of confusing because you guys were right. It is A and C. That's the thing. Because I think you have this funded master's course. I'm not sure if it's of your choice, or of the applicant's choice, or of the, I think it's actually, them, the ones that choose what course you're gonna do. But they offer you a master's course and also work in various departments. I don't know if it's in various departments, but it's work. But the thing is, they do employ you for 2 years. And within those 2 years that you're working, I think you get to do this course. I think it's 1 year, you work, you do the course, and then they employ you for another year. So it is a total of 2 years. So for this question, I guess you needed to look at the overall idea, the overall, like the totality of it, like what's in total, what is it that they offer you? So in general, it will be a total of 2 years employment. Now, what you can do during those 2 years, you can work in various departments, you can do the course, I don't know. But in general, it will be those 2 years. So it was a tricky one. Okay, guys. Any questions about that one? Okay, now the next one we got, this is this function or paraphrase question, because they ask you to listen again. So they will have something like listen to this part of the conversation again, and they'll play it for you. Now, in this case, I'm gonna read what Carla says. So Carla says, Harvey's a prestigious company. I couldn't see myself moving on fast if I managed to get my foot in the door. So can anybody please read that question? Maybe Ali, Alejandro?
Option C, maybe. What does Carla mean by this? If I got a job at Harvey's, I wouldn't want to leave the company for some time.
Okay. So you'll agree?
Yes, I agree. I think.
Okay. So what about the rest? What do you guys think? Okay, Miriam says C, Patricia says C, I think Karina too. Eloy, what do you think?
I think letter C.
All right. Jokabe, what about you?
I think the same. Option 3.
Okay, so let's go for that one. All right, that's perfect. If I got a job at Harvey's, I wouldn't want to leave the company for some time. So well done. In this case, you just needed to kind of paraphrase it, reinterpret it. First thing you needed to notice is this is a conditional sentence, right? If I manage to get my foot in the door. So there's a difference between saying if I manage to get my foot in the door and once I manage to get my foot in the door, or after I do it, or when I do it. So when you say if, it's more like a probability. You don't know if it's going to happen or not. You hope maybe it happened, but you really don't know. There's no way of knowing. But when you say after, once, or when, then you're actually convinced that you're gonna do it, that you're gonna get the job. So we can discard the first and the last ones, and we got the two of them left. And then you just need to think about what it means, you know? If I manage to get my foot in the door, can anyone tell me what that means?
Like to be hired.
It's like an expression. It doesn't literally mean like if I manage to step inside the door or walk in. It means if I get hired, if I manage to get the job, to get in, if they accept me, what will happen? She couldn't see herself moving on fast. So what about that? What does that mean?
That she wouldn't want to find another job or to quit.
Exactly. Yeah, she wouldn't want to find something else, start doing something else, or quit or leave that company for some time, or move on fast, like change companies, change jobs. So exactly. Okay, guys. We have the last one. This is a detailed question again, something I would have in my notes. So which one of these does Carla not need to do? So this program. Sending a resume, complete an application form, presentation, or interview. What doesn't she need to?
Send a resume.
Option A.
The first one, yes.
Hi. Well done. So sending a resume, you guys. Okay, so that's perfect. You got 4 out of 5. I think the only one we got wrong was this one here, about the total of 2 years. But that's great because it's not even, it's a detailed question, you know, so it's just so that maybe you pay attention a bit more. And it was a tricky one. So nice. I'm impressed. So yeah, that was a conversation set. So what do you think? Do you have any questions, any comments? Anything to say? Okay. So
Teacher?
next class will be, sorry?
Sorry, teacher. I have a question. All the listening have different accent? Because I think that part in some cases is difficult because in one time you listen like a Chinese accent or something like that.
Really? I don't think so. It's a good question, actually. I think in the TOEFL test, they usually have either the American accent or the British accent. I haven't heard like Chinese accents or maybe Latin accents, but I'm not so sure. I think in TOEFL, no. In other tests, like the IELTS, for example, they do include some weird accents, but I don't think that's going to be a problem here because from all the practices that I've seen, most of them were either American or rarely British accents. So I wouldn't say that's going to be a problem in this test, in the TOEFL test. Maybe in other standardized tests, yes.
Okay, teacher, thank you.
But anyhow, I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna look into it and I'll let you know next class.
Thank you, teacher.
Yes. Any other question?
Excuse me. So in this listening, we had 5 questions, but it can be the case that we have 7.
Okay, so in the conversations, in one conversation, you will always have 5 questions, like in this one. Now, the thing about having 5 or 7 tasks, that's in general. So, okay, let's go through it. In the listening part, we have conversations and lectures, right? Usually, I mean, it depends. So the reading and the listening kind of go together. So in the reading, you can have 3 passages or 4 passages. So you can have a longer reading section or a shorter one with 3 or 4 passages. And if you have 3 passages in the reading, that means that in the listening, you will have 5 tasks. And these 5 tasks will be 2 conversations. So 2 conversations and 3 lectures. Okay, in case you have 5 tasks. And that is if you have the shorter, that is if you have the longer reading section. So I'm gonna mark it, I'm gonna highlight it. So if you have 4 passages in the reading, then you got the shorter listening, so 5 tasks, 2 conversations and 3 lectures. But if you have the shorter reading section, then the listening needs to be longer. So you're gonna have 7 of them. And you're gonna have 3 conversations and 4 lectures. Okay, so it depends on what you have in the reading. So it goes like this. Okay, so if you have 3 passages in the reading, then you have more tasks in the listening. If you have less or fewer tasks in the reading, then you get more in the listening. Okay. Does that make sense? Is it okay?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Okay. So I don't know why they do that. Anyhow, you know that doesn't matter because one of them is not going to be scored. So in case you have 4, then one is not going to it's not going to be worth anything. And if you got 7, then 2 tasks, 1 conversation and 1 lecture is basically worthless. So so we don't know which ones they're going to be, which is why you need to just answer everything. But it should, I don't know why they do this, but yes. Okay, guys, so any other question? Okay, then guys. So please, before you leave, don't you forget filling out daily survey. And as I was saying, I'll see you guys on Thursday. We'll be covering the lectures. It's gonna be a bit different. So I'll see you then.
Thank you, teacher. Bye.
Thank you,
Goodbye.
teacher.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Good night.
teacher. Goodbye.
Goodbye, guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye, teacher.
Bye, teacher.
Bye.
Thanks.
Goodbye, teacher. Thank you.
Bye, guys.